Hello there, everyone. Welcome back to some more Let's Play Underrail. In the last episode, we explored more of the Black Sea. We traveled to the eastern section of it, where we revisited some of the caves around the Nexus of Technology, cleared it out of all the various spiders, and left with some more creature bits to break down back at our home. We didn't find any information about the ethereal torch, however, while we were there, and so we've come to the Oculus to poke about here to see if maybe Aziz can tell us a little bit about the spike we have, on the off chance it's related to it. It is not. He has nothing fancy to say about our spike, so we're going to try talking with the doctor right now, and if she still can't tell us about it, then we're going to have to go back to the Black Sea, and we'll talk with the ferryman and see if he might be able to tell us a little bit about it, or give us some information about what we're trying to find or what we're looking for. Remember that we, you and I, know about this object that can be acquired in the game and used to defeat the Shadowlith, but nothing I have encountered in the game so far hints this object even exists yet. No one's mentioned it, no one's mentioned the Shadowlith, we've got no clue of any of this stuff, so this would mean that it's located in, we find out about it by a means that I have never done before, and so bringing the spike around and talking with various people, that would be Jaguar, I think that's the guy's name, that's the Sobarian, who we might be able to be on good terms with. The ferryman, discussing philosophy, or someone who we haven't talked to about this stuff, might reveal what we need to do. So, with all that said, let's talk with Phyllis. Yes. And nope, so there's nothing here that lets us use our spike, so we'll just buy some ampoules. Oh, we also need some inhalants. We've been using a few of them. Thank you, Phyllis, very much. Alright, so much for that. No one in the free drones is going to know this information. I can't think of anyone in Core City who would know. How's my batteries and what have you looking? Okay. Let's now go back to the Black Sea. Do I have the right drugs with me? Yes, we have 4 hypercerebrics. Okay, so let's go to the Black Sea. I doubt any of the muties know about this. I suspect they do not. Oh, we do have Katya. Maybe she knows something about it. I hope you butchered them. Oh, they like the black eels. Sure did. She remains silent. We have no mercantile, so we cannot have her show us other rarer things. So show me what you have. Do we need anything while we're here? Nothing that we need directly from her, except for more ampoules, which we'll purchase now. Let's see if the ferryman is here. He is! Okay, perfect. So, let's have some juice and the hypercerebrics, and talk to him for a bit. You find the ferryman busy as always. Welcome back, kid. So let's see. I'd like to discuss descent into center with you. This was the idea that everything began, if it's been a long time, viewer, but my memory of this is that everything began like swimming on a surface, And as time elapses, these things become corrupted and get pulled down into the center, which is, I guess, like the equivalent of atrophy, where it will join with the center and then cease to exist, is my memory of it. So let's talk with him about this some more. He takes a draw. Excellent. The passage of time. Passage of time is but an illusion, a way in which we perceive the direct nature of reality. Alright, let's return to this later. How about the center? This is too complex for you to understand right now. I don't think you fully grasp some of the more basic concepts yet. Alright, then how about origin? The highest point of existence, free from all hardships, complete weightlessness. Tell me more about it. I've observed the decline of humanity in its slow but steady descent. Oh, am I recording? Okay, good. I am. If we've sunk from the surface to the underground, then what higher position did we occupy before that? I keep asking myself that question repeatedly for years, looking for records from before the surface. It's one of the reasons, I guess, why he's doing the salvaging he's doing. What did you discover? I read about celestial space above the surface, from which those who came before us fell from a higher place, in a higher state. They became heavier, and they fell down. He puffed smoke. But not even that celestial space from which they fell is origin. It is far too close to the surface. Too close. Origin is higher above, among the stars. It is where one can achieve complete weightlessness. Origin is complete weightlessness. So this weight, it is not only physical, is it? It must be some kind of burden we carry within ourselves. It is both, he nods. It is both. The weight which we carry on our backs and the one which we carry within. This burden, it makes us sink to the center. In fact, our very existence is like a constantly sinking ship. From the origin to the center, all of us share the ride. But the ship is tilted forward. He takes a draw. I'll do that. Tilted. Some of us being on its higher end, the stern, some on the lower bow, closer to the center, and the rest somewhere in between. So even though a person is relatively light, the heavier people will still weigh down the ship and make us all sink faster. In a way. I'd rather phrase it like this. We share our burden because what weighs down the ship is our combined weight. We may have our own burden. We can help ourselves by helping others with theirs. That is the key. You understand, kid? Oh, this is interesting. So we have a high intelligence, so we can press with this to ask that is it possible for all of us to become light enough to stop sinking. We can agree with him here. We can push back a little bit, which I think I would normally want to do. Yeah, maybe instead of all being on separate, one big ship, we're all on separate ships. Let's go with the intelligence one. But what happens if we are light enough? Can we stop sinking? If we are lighter than existence, we ascend. Tell me more about that. When you say lighter than existence, what do you mean exactly? To be lighter than existence is something that is not easily explained. For those who truly know, it cannot speak. I will say this though. Whatever makes you heavy, physically as well as mentally, let it go. The simplest first step you can take is to help others with their burdens, for this will unburden you. Oh, this is very much like some aspects of Catholicism teach this, right? As do Buddhism. So we share our burden. Like in that ship metaphor. He nods. I don't feel like insulting him. You know, when you do help other people, well, at least for me, I feel very good after I have done something. Like give people money or help them out if they're on the side of the road, or at work, helping someone get unstuck with something. It makes you feel better afterwards that you've helped someone in such a way without needing a reward and compensance for it. So this number 2 is true as long as by help ourselves we don't mean getting a reward. We help ourselves become lighter and help that person's burden also. So it's basically help others to help yourself. Well, not all help unburdens, and sometimes even burdens you and or others further. Be careful when reducing a truth to something you find easier to comprehend, for you might lose crucial details. Burden is the key. What happens when we ascend? What happens when you ascend to the origin, you ask? Well, nothing happens, for that presumes passage of time. All happening, all action, all temporal movement is a struggle, and always draws towards the opposite pole, the true death. What origin is, though, is a state of complete weightlessness, an absence of any struggle. Do you understand? The only way in which we can transcend the spirit of gravity, and we can, indeed, only transcend it, for we cannot resist it, is to turn our thoughts and our actions towards the origin. The origin. We must rid ourselves of all the things that make us heavy, that burden us, not only so that the spirit of gravity will stop affecting us, but so that we may be lighter than existence itself and float upwards to the origin. He takes a draw. We can make a pause here. No. Keep going. Very well. Let's talk about burdens for a bit. The weight which we carry on our backs and the one we carry within, this burden, makes us sink to the center. Do you consider money to be a burden? Probably not money itself, but the desire to acquire it. Is money a burden? For individuals, it depends. For humanity, indubitably. He pulls a coin out of his pocket and sets it on his hand. It's got physical weight. Be it a coin or a plastic card. It's got weight. But this weight, this physical, quantitative property, pales in comparison to the true weight that money can have. He puts the coin over his eye like an oblique monocle. It is a lens to which humanity has quantificated the values of everything, as everything can be expressed through it. Everything has a price. For the quantificate means to reduce to discrete magnitudes, and to reduce means to remove the qualities deemed unimportant. As humanity's higher values eroded, so did they become quantificated to this most profane material form. In fact, kid, this very burden is a large part of the erosion itself. The corruption. I suspect you use money then because you have to. I only use it when I gotta. Because I gotta, and the amount I gotta. Everything beyond that is a burden. Yep, only use money for the things you need it for. Don't try to acquire huge amounts of it otherwise. But you do have to worry about what your future holds for you, assuming you will live to see that future. You don't want to be working when you're 90 or 100 years old. But acquiring money just for the sake of having it, I guess it doesn't really help very much. I'd rather give money to other people than spend it on fancy things. But a few of those fancy things I really like. Maybe I'm being overburdened. This reminds me a little bit of the... what were they called now? The garbage people in the Labyrinth movie. But they acquired things believing that all those things were useful and helpful, and all it did was burden them and turn them into those ugly creatures. Would you abolish it given the chance? Whether I want to or not is irrelevant, as is the question of whether I could or couldn't. It's a sad part of humanity's imperfection. If money did not exist, it would be necessary to invent it. Oh, we get to say what we think about money. What does Tim think about money? So one is not true. Money is not pure evil. We've been able to use money to help other people out and help ourselves out. And without the money that we've spent, we would not be we wouldn't have the gear, the power that we have now. We wouldn't have the incredible jet skis. Let's just win the combats that we're in order to surpass the challenges that we've had to do to save this world as best we can. Getting back that object and giving it back to the faceless. So no, money is not pure evil. Number 2, I work hard to get paid. That money represents my blood and sweat, and for that I think I deserve something. That's true, although we have done work very rarely for nothing. Money represents the amount of effort that we put into something. But that's not necessarily true either. We've had very easy battles now because of how good our stuff is, and we walk out with more money than we had walking in, which lets us help secure us for the future if it shows up. Money is something that simply exists as part of the world. I don't think it's either good or bad, but depending on how we use it, it can become either. This is a rather neutral take. I like that answer. I mean, bartering would exist if money did not. Money just makes everyone have a kind of equal playing field to agree upon the worth of a thing, how much time and effort it costs, effectively. And that thing, purchasing someone's time or the things they make, can indeed be put to good or bad. Good or bad, we can't live without it. You can live without money. It's tough, but you can do it. You can, like, build a home in the woods, using stuff out there. I mean, of course, you would probably have to have money to buy all the tools, what have you, to start that these days, or it'd be far easier to do so with it. But you can live without money. Money gets you a lot of things, old man. You'd be happier too if you're wealthy. This is true. There's always a statement that money doesn't buy you happiness, but money can buy you things that make you happy. Tim says he looks down at his $4,000 computer he built this year, one of 2 of them. No, you are happier if you not if you're wealthy, but money can buy you things that indeed make you happy, depending upon what those things are. Like for the individual person, it will depend upon the thing they're buying for themselves. I think we'll go with 3, which is the answer probably everyone gives, but we're going to give this one as well. Money is something that simply exists, a part of the world. I don't think it's either good or bad, but depending upon how we use it, it can become either. Individuals may have this wisdom, they may, but humanity as a whole does not. You puff smoke. Those that are closer to the center than us, yes, are the faceless one of them. Good. Good. How did you know? They're more human than us, so that cannot be it. 4 would be correct. It is a product of someone else's wickedness on them. Many reasons is a bit vague. Double OS, that's a physical aspect, not an intangible one, which is what we're discussing. Their technology does make them a great burden. I'll go with this. Their way of life, be it a product of their wickedness or someone else's. Now, that is one of the reasons. Yeah, I agree. Their reliance on technology, the physical space they occupy, and the physical form they bear, their past. All these things add to their burden. What do you know of their past? Concretely, very little, for few know much about the feared tunnelers. But from what I do know, I can abstract and compare, and resemblances materialize. The factors I mentioned, they share them with many others. Yes, They are further down than most, I think. But I think they are starting to realize. Are there others like them? Yes. As a man partakes in reality and is drawn down by the spirit of gravity, he descends towards ever lower levels along within. But sometimes also as a vanguard of humanity. Sometimes whole groups can be this vanguard. And they are a vanguard in a sense that they serve as an example of decline. Exactly. Can they be helped? Possibly. You cannot help those who won't help themselves. Helping them means carrying their burden yourself, while they accumulate more of their own. Yet those who want to help themselves might drag you down in doing so, like drowning men pulling both his rescuer and himself to a watery grave. And then there are the sinister ones, the wicked. This is a tough thing for me to have to deal with at times. I have some friends who ask for money on occasion, and the last time I told them would be the last time that they would get it from me. I care about my friends and family, and if I have it spare, I can give it, but there comes a point where it's not appreciated any longer. It's just asked for with the belief that I'll give it, and they are not helping themselves out of the situations they are in. Further, it's beginning to drag me down as well. So you have to eventually realize that helping others in such a way could hurt you as well. You want to be there to give a hand, but sometimes that hand might not be giving them the thing they want. It might be instead reaching out to grab theirs and pull them up instead. The weight of men comes from many sources. Some we know intrinsically, but the rest can only be seen through the burden of others. It takes a draw. Oh, which means I take a soda. But as I've said before, helping others with their burden will also help you. But it can also burden you further. You simply need to be wise. So we have an intelligence answer. So we'll keep taking these because the Hypercerebrix helps us, I think, navigate through these dialogue trees in this way. Although let's talk about all these answers. This is fun. I like dwelling on all this stuff. So we'll come back for intelligence last. That's the one we're probably going to give. So we have wanting to help yourself doesn't always mean being able to help yourself. I think people overlook the latter far too much. That is also true. If you have an addiction, you may want to be free of it, but be unable to do so. You will need someone else's assistance in that case. There are other things of this sort. Your car breaks down on the side of the road and you don't know anything about how to fix it. Doesn't mean you want to fix it, but you might not know how, in which case you have to call for help instead. There's helping someone and helping someone help himself. You just have to make them believe they can. Yeah, helping. So we were just talking about this. Yeah, so helping someone directly versus giving them the tools needed to get themselves out of the problem. Sometimes they need one more than the other, but helping them help themselves is usually, I feel, always better. People just bring you down in the end. Where are those worthy of my time? That's probably true for Tim. Here, this Tim. But I think everyone's worth the time I spend to listen to them. At the very least. I also like talking with people or listening to people talk so I can understand their outlook on life and so on and so forth. I find it very interesting, especially for those who do not share the same outlook that I possess. So you can keep such conversations civil, depending upon how drastically different the worldviews might be. I'll stick to observing from a good distance, let the world sort of stuff out. Okay, you're saying, well, we're not getting involved. I suppose kindness to others somehow always comes back. I always do feel there's this sense of karma. I like to think that... So, viewer, I have had many health problems happen in my life. I have spent months in hospitals, sometimes clinging to life, with all sorts of various drugs pumped into me to keep me going. And yet, despite some of these horrible things that have happened, I always seem to survive. And when the problems are solved, it's through not a miracle, but very close to one, in that I end up discovering that I had a very bad thing, but somehow managed to avoid it, or the very bad thing was a rare form of the bad thing that isn't as bad as all other instances of it were. I like to think that's because of how I try to help other people. And so life decides that, well, Tim, we're going to give you another chance to keep going. Keep doing what you're doing, and we'll keep giving you more chances. I would give this answer if intelligence didn't exist. Let's look at what we're going to say. For negative examples, there must always be positive ones. I believe we can learn just as much, if not more, from those who are above us than those below the vanguard. You... Alright, kid. But the thing is, some lessons can only be learned from the mistakes of others, whereas we can draw wrong conclusions from looking up. Humanity of the higher states always looked up, always, yet they sunk into a place where looking up means looking at the ceiling. Perhaps by not looking down, they never noticed themselves sinking. What's the expression? Someone who's often looking up the stars will stumble on a rock. It seems to be something similar, stating the same thing. And yes, you can learn a lot by from the mistakes of others. Someone tries something very lofty, it doesn't work well, maybe they get injured or killed, or some horrific thing happen. Everyone understands what's occurred, and you don't try not to make that same mistake again. It's one of the reasons why we have so many, what's the word? I can't think of it. We have so many of these stories that speak to these truths, which we pass down from one another. There's a reason why they're there. He exhales like a thick cloud of smoke and looks up. I have no further comments. Tell me about the sinking ship metaphor again. Our very existence is like a constantly sinking ship, from the origin to the center. All of us share the ride, but the ship is tilted forward, tilted with some of us being on its higher end, the stern, some in the lower bow, closer to the center, and the rest somewhere in between. We share this burden because that weighs down the ship, and it's our combined weight. We may have our own burden, but we can help ourselves by helping others with theirs. That is the key. Alright, let's move on to a different concept. Origin. Wait. Different thought. Okay. What do we want to talk about? Let's go back to ascension. If we're a lighter than existence, we ascend. So, what is ascension like? The real ascension happens instantaneously, or rather outside time, and is present throughout it, for it radiates from the origin. The realization of this ascension partakes to some extent in physical reality and comes from my thoughts and is reflected in my actions. But ascension is available to all, regardless of the situation and even their actions. They are not essential. If time is an illusion, then the ascension happening instantaneously, temporally speaking, seems logical. You're thinking the right way, and that is the way I approached it too. When I first came to the realization that the reason all of us can ascend is because all of us can descend. You see, the spirit of gravity affects us. We're burdened, heavy, and we're being pulled down through physical existence. Yet all of us, as sentient beings, possess within us the means to deal with our burdens. Some of us do not, but hopefully most of us do. But just because we can doesn't mean we will. And just because we possess virtues doesn't mean we're flawless. All will descend fully, but only some will ascend. Only they are the true light of the origin. The rest are errors, distorted refractions, illusions, imperfections. I don't speak of men, for they are all imperfect. I speak of that which is within them. Virtues. What it is all that is left of you once you've rid yourself of burden. Strive to be that within you which is weightless, like colorless light, and that is how you will save most of what is man within you, that you call yourself. Why couldn't we become lighter through technological advancement? That's a fool's quest. A fool's quest to try and surmount the speed of gravity through technological means. Man will never truly live on the surface again. Never. Because the time is the place. You understand? The reality and its conditions only move in one direction, for such is their nature. You don't believe me? Neither would Biocorp or NFT technocrats. What became of their endeavors? It would be this. Number 5. At the end of the day, science can't answer some psychological questions that humanity has and never can. It is the non-physical aspect of our burden science can't deal with, isn't it? Technology exists to help us dominate over nature. We are not content. We carry burden. Despite the fact high technology can, in practice, bring us everywhere, we ourselves will bring us back down because we sought to exploit it. Then is there any purpose to pursuing high technology? What simply draws us further and farther from our own nature without us realizing it before it's too late? Its benefits are not to be ignored, for they facilitate survival, but its drawbacks are deadly. We don't even understand the risks until we witness what happened to those below us who sought to rise above us. We're far past the point where the pros of technology outweigh the cons with respect to our descent. You puff smoke, so it's sort of time. Let me tell you something which will hopefully clarify my position further. This fairy of mine is a piece of technology, a piece of old technology. It's made of heavy metal and it hovers over the dark depths, the center's curtains. It ain't simple, it requires fuel, maintenance, understanding. It's a burden in every sense. But a ship, no matter how heavy, it will not sink as long as its weight does not overcome the volume of water it can displace. Don't you understand, kid? It ain't the fact that the boat is heavy, but that it is light enough to stay afloat. If I were to load this with too much cargo, it would sink. If there was no one to maintain it, it would sink as well. But a sailor who does not maintain a ship has sunk himself already. The most important thing, however, kid, the most important thing, is that a ship can only sail on water, cannot rise above the surface of the water, or can climb on land, for it's inherently impossible. And thus, technology on its own allows us to stay afloat, perhaps because we can even push it ashore. Yet those who seek to make ships fly, the burden which necessitates its creation will make it crash down in flames and sink to the bottom of the sea. Different concept. True death. Alright, we have a bunch of repeats here. We have a new one. True death is the ultimate death. The permanent death. I've been thinking, can you help someone with their burden by killing them? Strictly hypothetically. He pauses, frowning. Killing. What do you mean exactly? I've told you that death, false death, removes you even further from the origin. So we can go with the person cannot get rid of his burden. So shouldn't this false death help him? Right, then we discovered the false death is also something about how the game's explaining how we can reload the game and try again, too. This is all, I think, encased in this type of philosophy. We'll go with 3. So, without a certain kind of burden, you might get back up again, even rise above your former life. False death is only of the flesh. You seem to be disregarding the essence, what is not confined to the body, what defines us no matter what form or shape we take or end up with. You told me burden comes from many sources. Maybe burden from certain sources requires certain methods. As I did say, who can make the right call? Can I? Can you? Things are often different than they seem, and death, even if false, is not to be taken lightly. Ultimately, I don't have a definitive answer to this question. What I can tell you, though, is that I have killed many people for reasons which might seem justified or not, and in doing so, even if I have, let's assume, helped some of them somehow, I've only burdened myself further. That I'm sure of. Which of these is the answer for us? No, 4 is not correct. Do we feel remorse for the lives that we've taken? Sometimes, but we have to kill everybody because we have to search every... Well, if we were playing on audio mode, we have to kill everybody so we can search the barrels that they're standing by to see if there's any audio items in them. One of these 2 answers for us. 2. I kill because I have to. I thought so too. Sometimes I was right. But then again, a different concept. Passage of time? No, we're not ready for that. The center? Too complex. Origin? Okay, we have another thing here. What made humanity heavier so they fell down? Humanity as we know it is flawed and imperfect, heavy and corporeal, easily seduced by quantified materialism instead of seeking intangible qualities. Therefore, humanity as such could have never been an origin. Whatever form, not physical but essential, the proto-humans had, the old books claim many, they were light, yet they became heavy. If being an origin is equal to weightlessness and absence of struggle, then it was either one of 2 things which would have brought humanity down: immaterial burden, or some kind of struggle which arose externally. I feel immaterial burden is correct. This would be bad ideologies, for example. You imply a conflict. Old books spoke of great celestial wars between higher beings. Wars which arose from what is essentially distancing from the origin and accumulation of weight by some. This brought them down, but that struggle was, it could be inferred, preceded by some kind of heaviness. Ultimately, I don't have the answer as to what made humanity heavy, for I don't know it, but I have answers as to what we could do to make ourselves lighter by looking at humanity of the origin. Looking, kid. All the things I told you, they are true in principle, but what does that mean in practice? A single answer to this is difficult for me to produce, so I must yet turn to a higher principle, and that is orientation. Ascension is instant, yet the passage of time is an illusion. I am a heavy old man, lighter than I've been, but only enough for me to float above the remains of civilizations no more. Yet I gaze down with care to unburden myself and seek answers and knowledge, but my orientation is toward the origin. Even if false death confuses me, kid, I'll still look up. takes a long draw before tilting his head up and exhaling a column of smoke. Let's return back to this later. Ascension, but tell me against. Burden, tell me against. True death. Okay, we can now talk about the center, where true death awaits. So what is the center? This reality of ours stretches in a certain direction, drawn by something I refer to as a spirit of gravity. This direction leads to true death. This is what I told you when we started, didn't I? He looks through the surface of the sea with focusless eyes. This lasts for a moment until he recognizes that his pipe is without smoke. He then empties it overboard, sprinkling over the sea what was once tobacco, but now mere ashes exhausted of all former quality. As fire burns and the light flames rise and reach the ceiling, ashes scatter and fall down. Some of the hot air escapes through the holes in the ceiling, but most of it accumulates in the high pockets until losing heat and diffusing into nothingness. The only thing that remains of the fire are the ashes. As humanity accepts matter as the only reality, the world, which was once spacious and rarefied, solidifies, becoming denser and denser, like a shrinking cell in the prison of burden that we've been unable to see outside of, thus accepting it, matter, in the first place. At one point in space, where the world, reality, existence becomes the densest, we will have reached the center, enclosed within and existing in some barely recognizable distorted form befitting of our true death. That is my view. He runs his fingers through his mustache and beard, nodding to himself. After all we've spoken about, I'd like to hear yours, kid. In the end, what do you think? We can go with, so I'm going to read all these answers out, give a quick thought on them, and then we'll choose one. First one. I agree with you completely. I feel we, as human beings, should strive to be as light as we can from both a corporeal and spiritual standpoint, and to recognize and seek quality and ultimately ascension in things greater than us. Live like people you believe better and unburdened? What if those people are lying, though? But generally, I do find that the less things I have, and the more I can help other people, the happier I am. I have a tiny little house, viewer, but it's perfect for me, and I couldn't imagine having something, well, I could imagine having one other room set up so I could stand up a game board in there with chairs, what have you. And maybe have an actual dining room so I can eat someplace that isn't in front of my television or here in front of my computer. But generally, I'm quite content. Small car, small yard. I don't need anything bigger than that. And I'm also quite content with, like, my YouTube channel. It's not super popular. I'm a baby channel. I love it. I couldn't imagine and do not want to become a super popular channel. I like the stuff that I have now. Less burdens on me. If I can use it the way he phrases it. Answer 2. I've always known there were things greater than me, and I strove towards self-improvement and what I considered to be the right thing to do in order to get closer to them. But even though our tendencies are the same, I have to disagree with you on how to reach it. This is an accurate description of how we level ourselves, putting points into the things so that we can actually improve ourselves, and consider the right thing to do would be the feats that we take and so on, the equipment that we wear. We go about improving ourselves in different ways. 2's a good one. 3. I agree with your observations and the spirit of your philosophy in its most abstract sense, but I do not see its correlation with the concrete reality as I know it. This is I can understand where you're coming from, but it has no actual material effect on the way I'm going to live here. Yet it could. So I don't think that's correct. I fear that the existential dread and the harshness of our reality has made you seek solace and hope in things that simply aren't there. I'll say in the living real world, as dark and ugly as it is. No, I think I can agree with him here, but I like thinking about stuff like this on occasion. We're going to go with 2. I've always known there were things greater than me, and I strove towards self-improvement and what I considered to be the right thing to do in order to get closer to them. But even though our tendencies are the same, I have to disagree with you on how to reach it. While you were talking, he was refilling his pipe with fresh tobacco, compressing it quietly with his tamper, before eventually relighting it, all done in the same fashion as when he first introduced you to the into the center. I see. He puffed smoke. Fine. You made it this far. I gotta respect your opinion. Don't regard this question of mine as the end of our discussion, kid. By no means. Let's see where we disagree, in the hope that we shall sail away from each other a bit wiser. That is a fantastic statement. God! If only more people who did not see eye to eye would have conversations with each other to walk away understanding the other better. But we stopped doing that some time ago. Alright, viewer. Well, I need a break. We'll come back to him later. He nods and puffs smoke. You know, I hadn't discussed the descent into the center with anyone since Hank Wardell, was it? Yes. Wardell. Wardell was the man who owned our home. I believe he was exactly like us. I think he was like a Underrail player character, if you can call it that. Did a bunch of stuff, did a bunch of adventuring, made his homes, experimented with something, and the home was destroyed. I would love to ask him about Hank Wardell. So let's go ahead and we'll keep talking to him for a little bit. Tell me about Hank Wardell. Hank was an older gentleman, not as old as myself, but most certainly a man who spent his years acquiring knowledge and building up great wisdom. This made him catch up or even surpass me in this regard. He strove for the optimum, and that is the aspect of him I admired and found fascinating the most. The way he thought of and did things. Due to the circumstances he was in at the time, I can't tell you a whole lot about him. I'm obliged to discretion, you see. Even mentioning his name was perhaps a bit of an oversight on my part. But it doesn't matter anymore, no. Still, him and I, we had a great discussion, debate, regarding the descent into center. Agreements on certain topics solidified our beliefs, while disagreements forced us to think hard in order to refute each other's arguments, and arguments were indeed strong. Some I haven't been able to refute to this day. That might mean that argument's correct. That's why you should always steel man arguments, not straw man them. He may have been the best conversational partner I've ever had. You often wonder how my arguments are holding up after a few years since our encounter. Where are you headed to next, Fairman? I'll be hitting the northeastern waters first, and after that probably some Sombrarian geyser village. That's the plan. That's the plan, kid. We already had the spots marked. One more potential series of questions. There was something you wanted to say when we talked about the monolith. A while ago. 14 years ago or so, I think. Yes, when a thing came into my possession, this little object that resembled... It'd be better to say looked like it came from the monolith. I got it from a pirate. He puffed smoke. The name eludes me. He was a member of the pirate crew that lived at Port Cito long before the jetters came in. They traded it for something I scavenged. He said that he got it from a man who got it from some other man who had apparently found it and claimed it came from the dreaded glowing canine. I thought it looked very interesting, very unusual. Very. Can you describe it? Well, it is difficult to describe its shape, as it was odd. He looks at his palm as if still holding the item. It had these two sides, two faces, one made of crystal, and the other some kind of dark rock. And depending upon the angle from which you inspected it, the shard always appeared somewhat different. I could never tell where each face exactly began when viewed from the side, and it felt different depending upon the perspective. I always found it heavier in my hand when staring at the rock face and the other way around. Yet the crystal face had this attractive prismatic glow when you stare at it, but casted no light at any other objects. That's the reason I brought it, for its utter peculiarity. The man who sold it to me referred to it as the shard, but it never appeared to me as something that has been broken off of something to have that name, but rather like a whole singular piece. The name shard still stuck with me for some reason. What'd you do with it? I carried it with me around, and I looked at it. He puffed smoke. It did remind me of the monolith. It's like its dull representation. The more I thought about it, the more it struck me as a sculpture of an artist whose inspiration laid in the monolith. It did, yeah. I just liked holding it in my hand and looking at it. Until the day I saw the Sombarian performing that ritual. What ritual? I don't remember exactly what kind of ritual they were performing, because on one hand I knew nothing about their ways, whereas now I know merely little. But on the other hand, because of the circumstances I'm about to explain. I was sailing a bit further north than usual on that day, just past the large horticulture gardens, and I saw them on an island to the east. I saw the colorful robes of their shamans, the torches, smelled the incense even from such a great distance. Then I felt I should approach them. This day, I'm not certain why I thought this, and even less why I did it. I was in my ferry, yeah. Then I found myself stepping onto this island with my shotgun in my hands. They were surprised by my intrusion and hellishly mad, but something still kept them from killing me right then and there. I could see the confusion and hesitation in their eyes. I placed my shotgun against a rock, made a few steps toward them, and pointed at the largest warrior. The largest, tallest warrior. Sejosor! Sejosor! It was being yelled and growled alongside phrases I could not interpret. All the while the crowd was moving back and making a circle around me and him. Me, a then much younger but unarmed man. Him, a 3.5 meter tall warrior wielding a humongous club. 10 feet tall, viewer. That's 10 feet tall, a little taller than that. I think. Okay. I'm an American, viewer. We don't use meters here. We don't tend to. Not in normal everyday life. We use feet. Empirical, not the metric system. But I'm pretty sure a meter is roughly 3 feet, give or take a little. So this tells me this guy was 10 feet tall. I was no match for him. He toyed with me like a child would toy with a captured mouse. He would grab me, look at me, then pull on my limbs till I screamed with pain. Throwing me around in different ways was amusing to him, his brethren as well, as they were laughing and cheering for him. Shaman smiled as well, but from the few glances I could give them, they were far more reserved in their reactions. Then he stood me up and showed me his hammer. Its head was the head of a beast, he puffs, torn off one of the large statues. Then he lightly tapped me in the chest and sent me flying back. He was turning around with his hammer in his hand and cheering, but he quickly discovered he was the only one. I stood up, bloodied and in pain, and saw fear in everyone's eyes. I grabbed something from my pocket and threw it at Sojazor, hitting him in the lower abdomen. He dropped to the ground, dead. Instant death. Instant. Something came over me and made me take this object and simply throw it at him, just like when it came over me to challenge Sojazor in the first place. You threw the shard. Correct. I threw it at Sojazor. That is where it remained. Oh! I get it. Let's finish this paragraph. It took, I don't even know how long, for the shock and horror to dissipate from their faces. The same emotions I saw when I first approached, but now intensified. His comrades, they carried him away on a ship, northwest. Meanwhile, I was approached by their shaman who spoke things which I couldn't understand at the time, but now... He pauses. I was allowed to leave. I grabbed my shotgun and sailed away. End of the story, kid. This 3 is what I want to talk about really quick. One time, I think it was with Gabriel, we went to that graveyard. Maybe it was Garrett. We went there when we took him out of retirement for a little bit, and there's all these various graves there. I'm guessing that we now know where the shard is located in one of those bodies. It's in the abdomen. Where'd you say you hit the soldier with the shard? Lower abdomen. Lower abdomen. But we still need to know which corpse it is. The graveyard will have spirits walking around, which will work like the shades in that one scientific projection room in Hollow Earth. And it's we don't have a way of dealing with them. Like, we can't hurt them in any way. So if we want this shard, we now need to know who it is, who's buried. Some way to recognize him. That's probably Yarwar. Yarwar? Alright, I'm off, Airman. Some other time. See ya, kid. Hey! Oh, holy crap, we earned Philosophy 3! Alright, what does that do for us? C. S. Feats. Increases resolve by 45 and maximum side points by 15. You're starting to put the pieces together. There might yet be some meaning behind this wretched existence. Well, viewer, I didn't expect to have an hour-long talk with the Ferryman today about just random stuff, but I'm glad we did. Unfortunately, that means there's no combat in this one. So next episode, we'll go and meet Yangwar, and we'll start meeting him. We'll do a little more exploring on the ocean, and then go back and talk with him some more, and we'll see how much information we can get from him. We will need to bring him some gifts, I think. Not right away. But we're going to want to bring him some food. So let's go ahead and pick up a little bit of that, and then we'll call the session. Hey, Calamity. I'll grab sea serpent fillet, cave hopper steak. We'll grab a little bit of all these foods. Alright, guys. Well, thank you guys again for watching. Hope it was entertaining. And I will see you all in the next one. Take care, everyone.